What's up guys, it's Bastian here coming at you with another Magic the Gathering Modern Deck profile. Today I am bringing you an actually quite well reviewed copy of the Illusions Tribal deck. I've seen this deck float about back 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I always loved tribal things. But I've seen a few people kind of picking this up even fairly recently, and just because they haven't really been reviewing the deck profile, they just pick it up, copy it into Magic Online and then play it, and they're wondering why the deck doesn't work. It's not necessarily because illusions are clunky. No, they're not great, but there are certainly some things that one person who wants to play illusions need to be aware of before they go into this deck. So let's start with the creatures, and let's start with what this deck does. It's creature aggro in blue, but we don't really run many counter spells. Actually, there's none in the main deck, but you can have many in your side deck if you want to. But realistically, Phantasmal Bear will give us a nice little starting point, a 1-mana 2/2, still efficient. It's nothing to write home about nowadays with the coming of these super pushed creatures, but it's still an illusion. It costs us 1 blue 2/2. You run it out on the first turn and hope it doesn't get bolted. It has the effect that when it becomes the target of a spell or ability, you have to sacrifice it so they can target it with anything that will take it away. But that's obviously what we're trying to work around here. 4 copies of Krovikan Mist, 1/1 flying illusion for 2, but its power and toughness are equal to the number of illusions on the battlefield. If you got nothing on the board, it's a 1/1 flyer. Ideally, you will use this Krovikan Mist to be dropped down when you already have an established board, and ideally looking at maybe a 4/4 or a 5/5 when this comes into play. Everybody knows the combo of the Phantasmal Image and the Lord of the Unreal, so I'm not going to go through that. But what is important to remember, guys, is that Phantasmal Image can copy anything. And when you choose to play illusions, you choose to potentially play your opponent's deck as well. If you go way back many years ago when Saffron Olives was playing this deck, he copied 2 Bobs and he was drawing 3 cards a turn. Very low CMC in this deck anyway. But I've seen many players completely forget that actually if you got Phantasmal Images in your hand, you might actually are better off copying what your opponent has. But yeah, the main call is still the same. Ideally wait for your opportunity to play Lord of the Unreal and Phantasmal Image in the same turn. Copy Lord of the Unreal with Phantasmal Image, so you got yourself a 3/3 hexproof Lord. Other mistake I see being done is running the Grand Architect. Adaptive Automaton is always the way to go, especially if your deck runs quite a few colorless lands. Remember that the Grand Architect needs double blue and a colorless to be played. And also, please don't play Metallic Mimic. That card is such a trap. If you see it late game, you're not going to see any of the buffs of it. And also, Adaptive Automaton gives you another reason to run beyond Illusory Angel your Ether Vial, because Ether Vial, you want to be ticking that up to 3 to be able to drop your Illusory Angels on without having to run her as a 4-cost unit. And I will show you another way how we can actually ensure that Illusory Angel is dropped on turn 3. You're never going to be able to drop Illusory Angel on turn 3 unless you have yourself a 0-cost card that you can run out. Even if you start with turn 1 Ether Vial, by the time you pick up Ether Vial, you're looking at turn 4, and then you can just run out a Phantasmal Bear and get Illusory Angel out as well. Whilst it is good to use Ether Vial to get around the Illusory Angel drawback, because you still get a 4/4 flyer for only 3, you have to cast another card in the turn to be able to play it, unless you Ether Vial her out. So these are the creatures. Now you'll be wondering, this is a very small list of creatures, only running 23. Yes, however, we are going to be able to see these creatures more often than one might think, because, okay, let's look at what we have. So obviously we have 4 ether vials, got 3 there, and a lonely sandbar just as a placeholder card. But yeah, you kind of want to run this deck with 4 ether vials to be able to just constantly apply pressure. And really what matters with these creature decks is that you always want to be able to run creatures out of your hand. So we're rocking 4 sleight of hand, and sleight of hand is the right option for this deck because it allows you to look at 2 cards and pick the one that's most important to you. Rather than drawing a card and then scrying, or with opt you get to scry one and then draw, this just simply gives you an opportunity to look at 2 and pick the one that's best, put the other one at the bottom. When you're looking at having 3 land out already, you probably don't want to see any more. So sleight of hand just says, you know what, I will allow you to dig deeper, pick the one that's the most important for you. This will allow you to see your creatures more often. And a big combo with Illusory Angel, I said, and again, just kind of to run the deck a little bit more efficiently, 4 copies of Mishra's Bauble. I love to have Gitaxian Probe as a card to run because that was obviously the best. I thought about Gotcha here. I thought about Surgical Extraction. Those would all be good cards to run. You can't really run. Was it Mutagenic Growth because you can't target your bear, and you ideally would want to target your bear when you run it out first turn, pump it to a 4/4 when you're blocking and take something out. It would be amazing. You can't really do it. Same story if you copy something with Phantasmal Image, that's not going to be a go. But we only have these 2 cards that are particularly allergic to being targeted. So Mishra's Bauble, anyway, you play it, you sack it, you look at the top card of your opponent's library, see what they're going to draw, and you put a little dice on top of your deck. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Why is this good? Because it doesn't cost anything, and this will actually allow our Illusory Angel to be a true 3-drop, 3-turn drop, because this is all you're going to do. Play Mishra's Bauble, play Illusory Angel, and you got it out. And ultimately running Mishra's Bauble just means that you're running a 56 card deck rather than a 60 card deck, which is great when you're aggroing. Anyway, so I'm really puzzled by no one's ever been like, okay, why don't we just include something that's a free play, because that's all that Illusory Angel's looking at. Now, thinking about removal, we do have a little bit of a removal suite here. We got 2 copies of Dismember, which of course is just a fantastic card. Any card that doesn't run black will probably run Dismember if they need some good removal. And we got 3 Vapor Snags. The Vapor Snags are in here because they play multiple functions. They can save your Lord of the Unreal from being removed if you don't have the Phantasmal Image, but you decided to run it out and you've got that 1 extra mana to keep up. But it can also clear the board for you, just like Dismember, for you to be able to get your attacks through. This is all the removal. We have 2 Dismember, 3 Vapor Snag, but because we're rocking 8 copies of cards that allow us to dig deeper, we are more likely to see these cards anyway. And also, the real problem is with blue aggro running counters is that in an aggro deck, you ideally want to tap out. And you are always going to be at least 1 turn behind if you can't tap out and just drop all the creatures that you have in your hand. Now, if you do have the that card where you can exile a blue card from your hand and just counter a non-creature spell. I can't remember its name. As I said, I haven't been playing Modern for ages now. But if you have that, you might want to include it. But again, that is a 2-card commitment. At the end of the day, works super great for some decks. For decks like this, and I've tried Disrupting Shoal, by the way, many years ago. I used to run this deck with Disrupting Shoal. That was one of the reasons why I used to run the Dragon as well, Phantasmal Dragon. But it doesn't work, because you're not going to have such a high card count in your hand to make that work. It would be great to have Mental Misstep. Yeah, that would be amazing. And then the other thing is, of course, the mana base. The mana base, we have 7 fetch lands. I'm running 4 Polluted Deltas here, and I'm running 3 flooded strands. You could probably run less. Many decks don't run any. But again, remember, if you're running fetch lands and you're running an aggro build, you don't want to be drawing lands. And so your fetch lands allow you to have a significantly smaller amount of land that you are probably going to draw in, and the rest then you hopefully are able to manage with sleight of hand. So run as many fetches as possible. Of course, you do need mutavaults as well, because mutavaults will become illusions. I currently only have 2 copies, but these 2 islands are placeholders. If you can run 4 mutavaults, that's fantastic. And that's another reason why it's good to run Adaptive Automaton, because the only blue card with a double blue requirement is Lord of the Unreal. No other cards have a double blue requirement, so you're less likely to have cards stuck in your hand that you can't play when you start with 2 mutavaults and a fetch land, because it will happen. Running 2 Cavern of Souls, you are not running these for the illusions, you're running these for Lord of the Unreal. You set it to human, you set it to wizard, whatever you want to set it to, either human or human wizard, I don't know. But make sure that you use this. If you have it, use it for Lord of the Unreal, because you don't want that countered. If Lord of the Unreal is countered, you won't be able to play your Phantasmal Image in. So that's why Cavern of Souls is actually important. If you do happen to run the second copy, or if you decide that you're going to run 4 copies, then yeah, of course, set the second one for illusions. I think 2 is probably enough. You can also do without it, but I think if you actually use this for Lord of the Unreal, and remember, it doesn't matter for the illusions for this to be a colorless mana, because besides Phantasmal Bear that needs this, only the single blue, they all have blue and colorless requirements. There we got no double blues, and we are running 6 islands. Again, if you want to just say, okay, I'm going to run another fetch, or I'm going to run another 2 Cavern of Souls, I would quite easily suggest run just 4 islands. That's probably enough. The reason why it's good to run Cavern of Souls and Mutavault and Castle Ventress is because you can get choked. Choke is a green enchantment, no islands untapped during their opponent's upkeep. So if you do get choked, at least that Castle Ventress will allow you to have access to 1 blue mana. But besides that, you are just going to have to kind of live with whatever's on board. You still can run your Adaptive Automatons out, and we're not that afraid of choke because we have Ether Vials, ideally 4 as I said. So as long as you got Ether Vials, you can still play the Ether Vials, you can still put counters onto the Ether Vials that will allow you to ultimately run other creatures out. So this is a big plus for the deck. But I do like when you flood a little bit, at least you can get that Scry 2 off it. Just kind of, again, a little bit of ensuring that we got the right cards on the top. This is my illusion deck, guys. I highly recommend you to consider it, and if you want to provide me any feedback, please do so under the video. Also, please leave a massive like. I hope you like my reasoning for these cards. Trust me, I have been having this illusions deck for at least 6 years, and again, as I said, I used to love to play Magic, especially Modern. Modern was my jam because, your card investments don't go away until Wizards of the Coast made sure that they do go away when they started to print Modern Masters. Yay, what a great way to spoil everybody's fun. But up until that point, I was in love with Modern, honestly, so much. So hope you guys enjoy my little illusions deck, and maybe check me out on my other videos too. Peace out, YouTube. Bastian signing out.